All right, we are doing kind of hybrid right now. There's a few people in the office, which is awesome, and all of you guys that have joined us as well. So let's jump into it. I thought today is relevant for situation that I have, and I think it kind of segments right into the kind of the theme that we've been going on. The last couple of weeks, we went through the list side process, right? And talked about that, and then we ended with kind of going over a settlement statement. So Barb is with Legacy Title is actually hosting a class. I'm not sure when that is. Hopefully it's on some of your schedules, but she's going to go through all of the closing documents, that kind of thing. So it'll be a really good class for all of you guys, whether it's a buy side or sell side, to understand what all those documents look like, what do they mean, how to explain them to your clients, because inevitably your clients are going to have questions and you're at the forefront of them asking them. So be sure to attend that or watch the recording if you can't attend it live. Well, first, let me ask you guys this: who's actively looking with a buyer under 200,000 right now? You ran a.
I am.
Okay, when you ran a search for them, were there any properties on the market?
Minimal.
Minimal. And the properties that you did look at, was there a lot of interest on them?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a client, I helped them sell their house. It's a divorce situation. So they're going their own ways. The husband, or the ex-husband, the male, he is looking at buying a home in, well, pretty much wherever we can find him a home. He's got a budget of up to $200,000, and we've looked at condos and houses. This morning, so earlier this week, a listing popped on as a coming soon. Everyone know what that means. It's a basically, okay. Doug, buddy, you got to mute yourself. Thank you. So earlier this week, property popped up, looked nice. It was coming soon. Today was the first day of showings that were allowed. So we were able to book something for 8:30 a.m. before he went into work. When I arrived, there were people there. When we left, there was people coming in. So I know it's going to have a ton of interest. He's interested, right? So I'm going to try to put my best foot forward. And I basically just want to talk through that scenario and how to write up the offer, and what we can do to make our offer stand out. I think it's relevant to a number of you guys that are out there right now trying to fight that fight. So if it's okay with you, that's what we're going to do. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So while I pull up the listing so you guys can all see, as well, first of all, let me tell you, does anybody have a buyer looking for under 200 in Fenton right now? Because I don't want to compete with any of you if I'm giving you all these tips.
No.
Just kidding.
I do.
Okay.
There's your competition.
All right. Well, if we do, good luck.
I'm a little north of there, though.
Okay, so this is the listing. Everyone can see my screen. It's 820 Sinclair in Fenton. Decent little house. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath on a Michigan basement. It's got a 2-car detached garage with a little bit of space below or behind it. It's walking distance to downtown Fenton.
What do we call them, Michigan basements?
Why? Good question, because I know most people will call them a crawl space.
They're like unfinished.
Yeah, it's like dirt floor. Well, sometimes they're not always dirt floor. It's like it's not quite a basement, but it's not finished. Typically, it's unfinished. When I say unfinished, I mean like literally like dirt. Oftentimes, not like a poured basement. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it might have a stone foundation as opposed to poured concrete or block. Typically dirt. Just dark and dank.
Yeah, the difference between that and like a basement, even a basement with block walls, is that a basement's going to be concrete floors, concrete walls. This is essentially, like John said, an older home that had like stone, they built a foundation on it and slapped the house on top of it, right? And that was left to store food or store canned goods or whatnot. It wasn't really designed to be lived in. It's the access to it oftentimes is on the outside of the home, like a cellar would be, right? It's not like it has stairs most of the time. So, although I've seen some that do, and they're really creepy. Yeah, it's walking distance to downtown Fenton, and there's not much on the market at all. So this agent, they did it right in terms of process, and that means on 2/9 they did a coming soon, and then it was set to be active as of today. So we scheduled that showing, and show you the photos. Not that really matters, but it's just a cute simple little house.
Matt, where did you just click that history at that you just clicked on? How'd you find that?
Good question. The little clock.
Oh, it's the clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll quickly show you all history of that property. So like what you'll notice when I just pulled this up in December of 2016, it was sold for $120. You see that?
Yeah. So I've never been able to pull history up. How funny.
Yeah.
There. I have to go somewhere else to find it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. See, I learned something new. Perfect.
So I might go back and I would say, I want to find the MLS number phone that was sold in 2016.
Mhm.
Right? And then, okay. So there's a reason why. So I'm going to look up, all right, in 2016, the current owners bought it as 2016. They bought it with a rural development loan, like a USDA loan. That leads me to believe, and it's not set in stone, but it leads me to believe, because they have similar requirements like an FHA or VA, that it probably passed all of those things, or the sellers had to remedy those things in 2016. So that was just 5 years ago, or 4.5, just under. So anyways, they're doing all right in a few years in terms of, and looks like these people were in multiple offer situation too.
Mhm.
So that's just getting a little bit of insight. You can also go through, if they still have them, old photos, right? If you want to see sometimes what sellers have done. In this case, the house looks exactly like it does now. So they haven't done much. But even the paint's the same. Jeez, oh pizza. So anyways, that's just little, doing your due diligence, if you will. But that's the house. Kudos to her. She did professional photos. And my buyer's interested, so we got to put together an offer. Now, again,
Yeah, I just can't believe the difference between professional photos and not professional, because essentially the house 5 years ago and now are the same, and it looks completely different, doesn't it?
it absolutely does.
I'm glad we looked at that. That was cool.
Yeah. So,
Well, you can see that they've redone the kitchen.
no, same kitchen, John.
Lighter with the,
Oh,
Same-
good thought.
Same kitchen.
Oh,
Better photos.
Daytime photos do look better than nighttime photos, because the older photos look like they were taken at night.
Yeah. But the house, it's not perfect by any means, but the photos do a great job of getting you in there. You know what I mean? So I'm standing in the driveway, right? Anybody's been there, you're going to be there shortly. Buyer's standing there, I'm standing there, other people are coming up, and the buyer says, what? Well, I'm interested, Matt. What do we do now? Right? And this is when it's like, well, let me hear it from you guys. What is the first thing that you would, what would you say? What would be your script? And then what would be the first things that you would do? You let her in. It locks, apparently.
I would ask them, okay, since you're interested, you want to put in an offer, and we can sit down and work out what you should offer, how we present the offer, and then we can go over the paperwork and we can present an offer.
Are they already pre-approved?
I'm not going to show a house to somebody who's not pre-approved, but great question. Are they pre-approved, right? Do they have their ducks in a row to be able to buy this home? Yep. Both of those things that you guys just said are great. And I would actually highlight them even earlier than that, because I'm going to talk about it in my buyer consultation. This market is moving too fast for me to after I show a house to figure out, let's get your pre-approval, you know what I mean? Like, let's get that in a row. I want to go to a showing with the expectation that if you like this home, I'm going to go right back to office and we're going to prepare an offer because it's that fast pace, right? And preferably as well, I'm going to, in my buyer's consultation, already explain the things like an appraisal guarantee, an escalation clause, what we would do for an earnest money deposit, right? I'm going to explain all those things in a perfect world. That way, when we're standing in that driveway and I said, hey, remember all these things, right? We're going to have to come out guns a-blazing, right? What else? I don't want to give away the answer.
You're gonna want to run comps. You're gonna go back, run comps, and come up with a fair offer.
Tammy says run comps, look at what other properties have sold. Henry says pick up the phone and call the listing agent.
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely.
If there's any other offers, see what the time frame is.
Find out what they need.
I guess ask what's important to the seller. It seems like houses are getting snatched. You have to be like right on. I just lost another one, and this time I offered them what they were asking for, and it was gone. So I guess my next step now is it's really competitive. So you're giving them the price that they want. You have to come up and get creative. Okay, what are some of the other things now besides the asking price that's gonna make it competitive? It's just it's crazy out there. So this is a great class. I'm actually sitting here waiting to see what you're going to say, how to make yourself competitive in this world. So
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I
Matt,
did. Yeah.
So like with so much interest in this home, do you expect it to go over asking price? Would you advise him or your client to consider offering over the asking price?
Yes. All of
By
the
how
above.
much?
Well, we'll get there in a second. All right. Because there's not a black and white answer to your question, but that conversation is dependent on to your buyer. How much do you want it? Right. So here's what I did. Reached out to the listing agent. Right. I said, this was the script, and Sharon was sitting right there, so she can attest to this. Hi, Kristen. This is me putting on my kiss ass hat, right? Because this person is the person that you're going to deal with, right? As a buyer, well, as agents, we should always be cordial with each other. As a buyer's agent who's about to go into battle with my client's offer, I'm going to set myself apart. I'm going to try to make her feel that I'm a professional person, right? I know what I'm doing. I'm sharp, right? And I'm solutions based. So I said, Kristen. Hi, Kristen. Hi, Kristen. Matt Marsupian with Keller Williams. How are you? Good, great. Hey, are you being inundated with phone calls regarding your listing on Sinclair? Yeah, actually I am. Ha ha ha. Well, it's a great little house. I was there this morning and I showed it to my client. He's a very well qualified buyer. He's actually pre-approved, not just pre-qualified. 20% down, no contingent, no home to sell or anything like that. But he's interested, and we're discussing the terms of an offer. Oh, okay, awesome. Blah blah blah. Hey, let me ask you, because of the interest that you have on the property, do you think your seller would accept an offer if we were to give them exactly what they're looking for today? Or is it something where you've discussed holding out till through the weekend? She says, Matt, well, we have so many showings scheduled for today and tomorrow. I think that he's probably going to make a decision or call for best offers on Sunday. Okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd probably do the same thing if I was in your shoes. Kristen, besides price, what else is important to your seller? Right? That's a line that I think that you should use. Alma basically said the same thing. Besides price, what's important to your seller? And I just try to shut up, right? Oftentimes they won't even know how to answer the question. A smart listing agent should, right? You should know what's important to your client. And she says, I said, like, for instance, occupancy. No, they don't. He doesn't really need occupancy. As you can see, he's pretty much moved everything out. So it won't be a problem for him to get everything out. But she said, however, he does need time to get the rest of the items out. And, he's got a boat in the garage. So he's got to remove that boat. And, he ideally wouldn't remove the boat until the weather, is a little bit nicer, kind of sucky to tow a boat in the snow. right? Okay, mental note, right? So I said, anything else? No, not really, Okay, awesome. I'm going to discuss with my buyer. I'm going to put together an offer, and I noted in your agent remarks that you have an email address that you'd like offers to be sent to. So I'll make sure I send it to that email address, and I'll shoot you a text as well when I send an offer. Is that great? She's like, that would be wonderful. Right. Thank you. Okay, great, Kristen. Thank you very much for taking my call. Look forward to the opportunity to work with you. And that was it. That was my conversation. Anyone have any other questions or suggestions that maybe I could have asked or I should have asked, or anything else I would have talked about?
No, but it seems like you're like standing out. You're having a nice conversation with her. I mean, if no one else does that, you would kind of be remembered by me. I had a nice conversation. You kind of asked a lot of questions. I can see where that's going compared to just getting offers.
Yeah.
That are just nothing, that are just there.
Yeah. As a listing agent, I will tell you, it never ceases to amaze me how many just on a listing that I pop up that I just get an offer in my inbox from an agent. That doesn't, nothing's written, no phone call, no text. Sometimes no even anything in the body of an email. It's just simply like, here's the offer. And I've also, after I've even accepted an offer, checked my spam and realized there was offers in my inbox in my spam, right? That I never reviewed because they were in my junk mail, but I never went to review because the agent never called or texted or reached out saying, hey, can you confirm that you've received our offer? So
the other thing I would say too is when you do write that offer and you make the phone calls and you find out all the information and you create that rapport and all that kind of stuff, please don't make your offer sloppy, because I've gotten a lot of offers that you can tell people write quickly, handwritten, they leave a ton of stuff blank, and all they're doing is throwing in the amount, how the mortgage is and a closing date and signing it.
Yeah.
And that's a big turnoff.
For sure is.
Man, another thing I've heard recently with my listing is I've had a couple agents that called, strike up the conversation, had made it a point to inform me that their seller was also with their preferred lender and one they had worked with for years, and felt more assured on being able to close the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Mike. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, you're going to get my offer and you're going to see the pre-approval, and, I'm going to say these things in the body of the email that I'm sending you, but I'm setting the stage that this is a good buyer, right? With the lender that I've used that gets deals closed, right? What's a seller looking for at the end of the day? They're looking for
the deal.
Yeah, surety of close, right? Yes, they want the most amount of money, but they want to make sure that it's going to get to the closing table. So there are things that you can do and things you can't do, and I'm going to try to provide that assurance, or at least plant that seed, right? So when Alma, like you said, when she receives that email from me with that offer, she receives that text or call from me, right? She's like, okay, this is the guy that's got his shit together. That's the goal, right? That's the goal, right?
Hey, Matt, I have a question.
Yeah.
That's when that listing agent answer their phone. How about if they not answering the phone?
Great question, Safe. Not everyone's answering their phone these days, especially when it's getting a call. And listen, I'm not going to make excuses for it because it's not professional. However, I've been in those shoes and I've been very busy, right? And I think that, it's part of the business, quite honestly. So what I would have done in that situation, I would have left a voicemail. I would have followed up with a text message. In the meantime, I'd start writing up the offer, right? Being prepared to maybe talk to them, right, before I actually send it out to get signed by my buyers. Hopefully they can give me some information. If not, I'm not going to limit that to being able to fire off my email. Now, if I fire off the offer and then I don't get any response, but then it's called highest and best, I'm going to try like hell to try to get back a hold of them and say, hey, I sent you an offer, but I didn't have a conversation with you in terms of what's important to your client. Can you tell me, what is? So I'm going to try, but the fact that if the listing agent isn't responsive or doesn't talk to me, it's frustrating, but I'm still not going to limit that to me moving forward with trying to write the best offer that I can write with my buyer. Make sense?
Yeah, sure. Well, what happens to me, like every agent that he never answered the phone when I call him about his listing, especially when it's just a new listing. And that deal didn't happen. That offer didn't accept it. And whoever answered the phone and communicate with me with all the terms, and even we go to multiple offer situation, even yesterday, I got that offer accepted by just communicate with the agent with all the terms. And the deal going when is really good agent that he's communicate with the other agent. But when they don't answer, I just, even one of them, he not even respond when other offer get accepted.
Yeah. I do think if you do get an agent on the phone, you know, you may ask them, hey, listen, I know you're a busy person, right? You're flattering them a little bit. I know you're busy, especially with this listing. How would you prefer I communicate with you? Are you a text person? You prefer email, or would you like me to pick up the phone and call you? I know what I like personally, but I'm going to adapt my style to whatever that listing agent does, right? If they're not an email person, I'm not going to bother, right? Besides sending my offer, of course, right? Some people are the old school and they just want to pick up the phone and talk. They're not texters, right? So I'm going to try to figure that out. Safe. The only thing that I could say to sum that up is be the type of agent that you want to work with, right? And, you know, we can't control what other people can do, but we can still move forward to the best of our abilities. And it's just the environment that we're in. I mean, it's crazy. And if you flip the script, you've got 15, 20 offers as a listing agent. That's hard. I know it's a good problem to have, but it's hard. It really is. So
I was
one thing that
sorry. I was just gonna say that when I had a listing and you're getting so many phone calls and you do have to live or you're on the other line, I realized a lot of agents don't pay attention to their voicemail, and I had to make sure that mine was cleared out and people could leave me messages. And I thought that I had it cleared out, but you have to do like a double delete to clear it in the iPhone. And so luckily I was able to clear that out, but I don't think a lot of agents think about that. And I've tried to leave messages like, this person's voicemail is full, and you're like, really? I can't even leave you a message. Like,
I've had that happen to me too. I didn't even realize. I actually, my voicemail say, hey, this is Matt Mercer with Keller Williams Advantage. Feel free to leave a message. For a quicker response, text me. And I mean, I don't know. It's just, maybe people would know that, but it's like just reiterating like, hey, and like, so oftentimes if I miss a call, then I get a text. I'm like, okay, you know, then so, and when you text someone, always like sign who you are and where you're from. Nothing worse than I hate is a text. It's like, hey, Matt, any offers? Like, on what and who are you? I joke, but I'm serious. This happens, guys. Anyways.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say with your original one, when you had said like, you know, what else do you ask for when you make that call? And I do ask them about their current offer status, if they will disclose. And then sometimes, and I don't know if you've heard of this or not, I had took an ethics class some years back, and they actually said we're not supposed to ask certain questions, but I will ask them, you know, if any of the offers are cash or are they mortgage. And then if they'll say it's mortgage, I will then dig deeper and say, is it FHA or conventional? Just because, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, agents can decline to respond to whatever they want, you know, and I just kind of leave it there. But I don't know if we should be asking those types of questions or if we shouldn't. But at this time, I do ask people, I mean, agents that too.
Yeah,
I would ask.
Yeah. There's nothing that I'm aware of. There's nothing against the ethics to be able to ask, right? The listing agent is not obligated to share that with us. Now, the ethics say you can't lie or misrepresent, but they can choose to tell you or not to tell you. So let me play devil's advocate, Taylor. I'm the listing agent in this regard, and you ask me that question. I say, Taylor, I appreciate the question, but I'm curious, why would you ask that?
Because, you know, I told them that my client is qualified for such and such mortgage. And then on top of that too, like for FHA right now, it just seems that those types of offers don't always get accepted over conventional. So then if I know that they have a conventional offer, I have to advise my client on how do we make a competing FHA offer by maybe stating that the client's going to be responsible for any FHA required repairs, improvements, or reinspection fees, or things of that nature too. So, and then sometimes if they're receiving any down payment assistance that limits them, they're not allowed to do appraisal guarantees with those types of mortgages. So you want to, you know, just kind of know, it's just getting as much information to make your offer as competitive as possible.
I try
And
to
that's your
trip.
job.
I try to trip up Taylor and she fires right back. I love it. Good. If you're asked that question, you better be prepared to be able to back it up. If you're not, if you don't know what to say, don't ask the question, right? We were the second showing, so she had no offers yet, right? But fast forward, she'll probably have some offers by today or tomorrow or Saturday, right? And then if I've submitted mine and then she says, hey, we're asking for final and best, I might have the opportunity to increase our offer. And Dan Naurato and I actually did a class on this topic and used a real life scenario and talk that through on what that looked like, right? And how that have those conversations with the other agent. We were primarily kind of talking from a list side, but I think that you're only going to benefit your client if you try to dig up as much as possible to be able to be competitive. You need to have that conversation with that agent. Hey, what's it going to take? Like, you tell me, like, right? And an agent's not going to be able to say, well, I've got 2 at list price, I've got 3 above, right? They're probably not going to say that, but they're going to say, listen, Matt, I've got multiple offers. They're all really strong. In fact, really strong, right? You know, none are cash, but you know, they're all financing. Some are conventional, some are FHA. There's people in there that have thrown in, you know, appraisal guarantees and one waived the inspection. So I would just, you know, put your best foot forward, right? Or maybe I already submitted my offer and they said, Matt, you're actually a really strong candidate, right? We love the conventional, strong down payment. You know, you're just not the highest. If you could come up, maybe it would give you a little bit better shot, right? So I'm not telling that agent, or that agent wouldn't be telling me, hey, if you come up, you're going to win it, but they're coaching me in what it's going to take. I don't personally see a downside with that, because what is your end goal? To try to get your clients that house. And the only way you can increase your offer or make it more competitive is to have a glimpse of what else is out there. On the flip side, on the list agent side, why is that going to be a downfall for your seller? Your job is to get the best price and the best terms for your seller. So if you can get people up, it's not a bad thing. So I think we have to break the keeping the cards close to your chest game and have a little bit of a, hey, let's come up with this, right? And you're going to come across agents that are going to have that conversation. You're going to come across some that are complete jerks, and then they're not going to. But it is what it is.
I just put in the chat the link to yours and Dan's class from the fall.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what am I going to do at this point? Right? Spoke with the listing agent. Listing agent gave me some information. I'm going to do what now?
You gonna stand? You gonna socially distance?
Someone needs to mute.
Call your buyer.
Henry says, write up the offer.
Are accurate. Go over the listing price and the EDM and all that stuff with them.
Yeah. So Henry says, get to work, right? Tammy had said, or was it Tammy said run comps, right? Why? Okay. So if humor me, why would I run comps?
Oh, you're asking me. You would run comps so that you know what everything is selling for in the area. And that always kind of gives your buyer a peace of mind when they're making an offer, when they see what else has sold in that area for what price. So they know that the market obviously is a very strong market right now. So they're going to have to pay probably over list price if they're in a multiple offer situation, but running comps always kind of gives them a peace of mind instead of just throwing a number out. And we also want to make sure the house isn't overpriced. Sometimes I run the comps before I even go to the showing. If I know it's a hot house and they're going to want it.
Yeah, agreed. So
I run comps too, to see like what, I'm sorry, I had missed who was talking, but yeah, I do it for the same reason. And then actually I'm running comps for one recent showing, just because sometimes when agents price the house, it's already at the top of some of these markets already. So you already know if you're going to be talking to your client, if they write over, there could be that opportunity that they need to do an appraisal guarantee, because from what you see in the market, you don't see enough there. Or sometimes too, with one particular client, it just kind of determined how much they really wanted the house or not, because, you know, if they were willing to bring whatever that difference looked like.
yeah, great answers. Okay.
What's a competitive appraisal guarantee?
What's a competitive appraisal guarantee?
Mhm.
Well, it depends. It depends on what the property is listed at and how above you're trying to list it at. There's no rule.
I'll pull up the clause and then you can talk through it.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We are listed at this property is listed at 169.9. Everyone can see this.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing, within a half-mile vicinity. I didn't really specify too much other than 3-bed, 1-bath. I'm trying to compare apples to apples. I didn't really filter square footage, but what I'm basically doing is I don't know, in this case, justifying, right? Or at least seeing, right? Are we completely out of whack, right? I mean, if you know the area, you know that it's not going to, but I'm getting a general sense. This isn't an area that I work a ton, but I'm doing this one, not that my buyer's gonna offer less than this, right? We know that right now this is gonna go for full price or more, but I'm preparing him in terms of if we are willing to offer more, how much more, and is it going to appraise, right? That's always the concern or the question, right? And therein lies if you're offering more, are you offering an appraisal guarantee? Where I like to see an appraisal guarantee is when the offers are bid up. Meaning, as a listing agent, I typically, and Sharon, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I typically am going to list in the neighborhood that I know it's probably going to appraise at. That's fair market value. And I feel even in this market, you should price it at or below fair market value to get the most eyeballs on it. It's when it starts getting bid up is when I really want to see or need to see an appraisal guarantee, right?
So I'm going to share this now so that you can talk through it, which is going to kick you off, but that's fine.
So, for those of you who don't know, an appraisal guarantee, so we got two things, right? There's an escalation clause and appraisal guarantee. Let's talk about appraisal guarantee first. Can someone summarize for me what an appraisal guarantee is?
Is it where you guarantee if the house gets appraised for less, that the buyer will pay the difference up to
Let's go. Can we even go one step back? And it's important to explain this to buyers and sellers.
Yes.
You have to satisfy three parties when you're selling a house. The buyer needs to feel like they're buying the house for a good price. The seller needs to feel like they're getting a proper value for their home. And if there is financing, meaning not cash, the bank must also agree with the price that they are putting a loan on, because that house is going to be collateral for that loan.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important. Go ahead.
I'm gonna try to simplify this, but I want to do this real world scenario, and I want you guys to understand this math, because I find that a lot of agents can't explain it, and therefore their clients don't understand it. And if you put your client in a situation where they have to cover an appraisal guarantee and they weren't prepared, they're gonna be mad because they didn't explain it. I would even put it in writing before they sign an agreement. What it means is that this property is priced at 169.9, right? Let's say my clients are willing to offer 175. Okay, 175. Now my buyer's putting 20% down. Okay, so if they buy the house for 175, what is their down payment? $35,000. If they buy it for $175,000, their down payment with 20% down is $35,000. Now the house has to appraise for how much? $175,000. Would it need to appraise for more or less if their down payment was different?
It would be the same.
Trick question. Same.
It'll
Doesn't
be the
matter.
same.
Doesn't matter. The bank wants to see the property appraised for at or above the sales price. Okay? Make sense? So what if instead of 175, the property comes in and appraises at 170?
You could just offer less on your down payment.
So my buyer's down payment of 20% on 170 is $34,000. However, the bank's saying, I'm not going to lend you based on a sales price of 175 because it only appraised at 170. So if you want to buy this house at 175, you have to come up with your 20% down payment based on 170 and the difference between 170 and 175 in cash. So $34,000 down payment plus the $5,000 cash means you have to bring $39,000. So you see how the difference between the property, same sales price of 175, but it appraising at 175 or it appraising at 170 affects your buyer's cash to close. Does that make sense, everyone? So based on the way our purchase agreement is written, if a property appraises for less than the sales price or the per contract price, the buyer has the ability to nullify the deal and walk away. That's the default language in our purchase agreement. And it's there for a reason, because our buyers don't want to be obligated to pay a difference in cash unless there's something like this added to the purchase agreement, which is an appraisal waiver or appraisal guarantee. Appraisal waiver I define as basically saying, doesn't matter what it appraises for, we're paying an amount 175. If it appraises for 150, I got to come up with $25,000 difference. Does that make sense? So if it appraises for 150, my buyer's putting 20% down, how much do they have to bring to closing? $55,000. Why? 20% down of 150 plus the difference of 150 and 175, $25,000 cash that the bank will not let them finance. Henry's on. Does that make sense? So guys, if you've got a buyer that's got a bunch of cash reserves, right? They potentially could do this. What happens if someone's got 5% down? Can they guarantee 5%? You know, do they have the funds to be able to do their 5% down payment plus their closing costs, right? Which we haven't really talked about, plus an appraisal guarantee? Maybe not. Maybe not. And that's why I'm telling you all of this, is to go into the mentality of what a listing agent and a seller is thinking. Right? If this person is giving me an FHA loan of 3.5% down, they're offering $10,000 appraisal waiver, I'm going to say, where are you getting this money from? How are you going to do that? If you have that much cash, why are you doing an FHA loan? Does that make sense? Making the wheels turn a little bit. So let's go back to my scenario. This house is priced at $169,900. Let's say my buyers are willing to offer $175,000. Hope or Andrea, one of you had a question. How much would a normal appraisal guarantee in that regard? What do you think I would say to that in that scenario? How much would I tell my buyer, hey, this is how much we should probably put as an appraisal guarantee? I would say $5,000.
I was thinking 6, but okay.
Sure. There's no right or wrong answer, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to say, because we've increased the sales price above what you listed it at and you felt that it would appraise it at, we're going to make sure that that difference is covered. Okay. So we're going to give the seller peace of mind.
If you want significant.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, Matt.
Make your appraisal guarantee the full amount, or if you're $25,000 over, would you guarantee 15?
Great question. Henry asked, if you went significantly higher, let's say you offered $200,000, Matt, how much would you make the appraisal guarantee that difference? If I could, if my buyer really, really wanted it. But in that regard, I'm going to be looking at this saying, Mr. Buyer, these are the scenarios. What if it doesn't appraise? What if it appraises at list price? Are you prepared to be able to cover that 25K? If we're looking at comps saying, man, they really lowered this, they undercut this. This house, no problem, will appraise at 180, 185 maybe. I'm going to be looking at what's pending, right? Is there any comps that are going to be sold comps by the time we get an appraisal that maybe are out there pending right now? Maybe I can pick up the phone and see if that agent will tell me what they went under contract for. So there's a lot to answer to that question, but sure, ideally, I'm going to try to guarantee as much as my buyer can, with them fully understanding what that means in different scenarios. Does that make sense? Because at the end of the day, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to guarantee, but I'm going to pretend, I'm going to assume, if I can justify it, again, looking at those comps, that this house is probably going to appraise right in the range for what it was listed at. Now, on the contrary, if I look at the list price and I see that the list price is high and I can't even justify the list price, I'm going to be really leery about my buyer guaranteeing an endless amount, because I'm already kind of nervous about it appraising at the price that it was listed at. So I might, in that regard, go back to the buyer or the listing agent and say, hey, I want to come up with a really, really strong offer for you. And my buyer's prepared to guarantee a certain amount of appraisal. I'm having a hard time justifying your list price. Can you help me understand how you came to it? Yeah, we got a question. Hold on if you can't hear. Yes.
You want to go in at 175, and if you get the appraisal guarantee for 5,000, now is that 5,000 on top of the 175? So you're gonna be at 180?
No. So the question was let's say in the scenario I ran, right, 169.9 sale list price. I'm going to offer 175. We're going with a $5,000 price or appraisal guarantee. Okay, let's work through that. What that means. What is the most my buyer's going to pay for the home in that regard? In that situation, 175. All right, we're going to pay no more than 175. Right. What's the bottom we're going to pay?
169.
Appraisal price.
Oh, under, is it 5 under? So 164?
No.
The appraisal plus 5,000.
Appraisal plus 5,000. Jordan, you got it. Unless we have a floor in the language of the appraisal, meaning, and I don't want to confuse people, guys, but this is really important. As an agent, I want to be able, as a list agent specifically, as a seller, I want, if you say, hey, my buyer's offer is 175, should the property not appraise for 175, my buyer will pay up to $5,000 above the appraisal amount. So what if it appraises at 150? According to that, my buyer would pay 155. As a seller, I don't want to sell it for 155, right? So I want to probably put a floor on it. Does that make sense? It has to appraise at 169.9, and if it doesn't, you know, I reserve as a seller. I don't have to sell it, right? So both parties are looking to protect their interests in this, and that's why we have this language in here.
I feel like Vanna White. Am I doing a good job?
Yes, you're highlighting. I like it.
Great job.
So in this, yeah.
I'm starting up. I don't know if I'm repeating the same question. I don't know who just asked that. I couldn't hear, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So, and I apologize again if I'm repeating. So offers 175. The house appraises for 170. The appraisal guarantee states that the buyer will cover the difference of $5,000.
Yeah, let's be careful with our language. Not the difference. My buyer will pay up to $5,000 above appraised price, not to exceed 175. So let's say Angela, and I don't mean to cut you off, but let me see if this helps. What if the property appraises at 172, guys? What if it appraises at 172? What does my buyer pay?
175.
177.
175.
Sorry, I didn't.
If our offer, yeah, contract price is 175 with a $5,000 appraisal guarantee. My buyer's not going to pay more than 175 under any scenario. However, the amount of cash that they have to cover, right, in addition to their down payment, it's not going to exceed $5,000, and it's going to be less if the property appraises for 171, 172, 173, 174, right?
Because there's a ceiling.
Yeah, if property appraised at 174, my buyer is coming up with their 20% down payment plus $1,000, the difference between 174 and 175, right?
Read this one sentence and don't overcomplicate it.
Should
It's
appraised value.
exactly what it says.
Yeah, so should appraised value. So let's go back to my scenario. 169.9 is the list price. I'm going to offer 175. I'm going to put in my contract, should appraised value fall below purchase price, buyer agrees to pay, buyer agrees to pay $5,000 above appraised value up to 175. Okay. In the event the appraisal falls below, I'm going to put 165. 165. Why? Why would I do that? This contract may be renegotiated. Why would I put below 165?
Because then he's getting into a house that he has negative equity in because the value is 165. And he's
It's overcomplicating it.
It's a good thought. Henry's like, you're protecting your buyer by not over. So let's assume my buyer is prepared to pay $5,000 over what it's worth, no matter what scenario, right? So they already kind of know that. But I'm going to put 165 in this regard. I'm going to put that floor to appease only the seller, right? It's not appeasing my buyer. If my buyer says, hey, if we're praising 150 and I buy this house for 155, winner, chicken dinner, they don't care, right? But I'm going to put 165 in there because if the seller looks at that and accepts this, what is the lowest amount that they're going to get for the home? 170, right? Because that 165 is their floor. A $5,000 appraisal guarantee. Their minimum they're going to get is 170. Best price they're going to get is 175. If they're
It's all about expectations.
Exactly. They're confident that this house should have no problem of appraising at 170 because that's what they ran the comps at. They're probably in their head thinking, okay, great, I'm going to get 175. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. This is important to run these numbers, guys, to make sure that your sellers, your buyers understand this. Taylor was on her way to an appointment. Taylor, are you still on this? She was on an appointment and she's like, Matt, running through the numbers in her head. Just want to make sure that I'm in the right mindset. And she blah, 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 blah. If this, if that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I was like, yeah, you got it right. She's like, okay, thanks. And that was it. Right. She just needed to make sure that she was running through some different scenarios and it made sense. And she was communicating that correctly to her clients. Make sense, guys? Mm-hmm. And I'm just pulling 175 out there. Like, obviously,
could be anything.
The amount that my buyer is willing to, it's going to be one based on his pre-approval, what he's able to do. And number two, what he's comfortable with and what the comparables show. And the comparables are going to help him feel comfortable. If he goes into this scenario thinking, Matt, we'll be lucky if it appraises for 170, he's probably going to be reluctant to be, doing a big old fat appraisal guarantee, right? Right. But, maybe in order to win the deal, it's all FHA loans and none of them have an appraisal guarantee. And I offer $1,000, just $1,000, right? Maybe that would potentially win it. It doesn't have to be these big numbers necessarily.
So now let's look at an escalation clause.
You can do an appraisal guarantee with an FHA. You cannot do one, my understanding is with a USDA loan. Okay. Yeah. Escalation clause. Can someone, without reading this verbatim, just give me the quick what an escalation clause is?
Basically, you're going to beat the highest price offered by a set amount.
Henry's saying, my offer is this, but I'm also willing to come up should you receive any other offers that are higher than mine. Right? This one's confusing and it's less common to be used. There's a time and a place for it. Some agents will welcome these. Some of them don't even like them. I find that
I just wrote one Sunday.
I find the ones that don't like them.
I wrote one last week too.
Okay. I find the ones that the listing agents that don't like them are the ones that can't explain it to their clients.
Wow.
Or they're of the mindset saying if your buyers are willing to go up to 175 or 180 or whatever it is your just offer that, right? Why would someone want to do an escalation clause? Why would a buyer specifically want to do an escalation clause?
Get the house?
Well,
sure. For two reasons, Matt.
Yeah, if they're worried about losing out on the offer.
And not overpaying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key word there. They don't want to pay more than they have to.
Or too much more than they have to, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say they don't want to pay more than they have to, but also another one is, especially if a house is going to be hot and maybe you're the first offer in, it's likely that you're going to see other offers. And by doing an escalation clause in the beginning, might make it more competitive to some of the offers that are coming in after you.
Sure.
It's already kind of your highest and best, like sort of mechanism, maybe.
So in other words, let's run this scenario. Buyer's offer is blank, 330 in this regard. Sharon, can you change this? Just my
Sorry.
mind. No. Just do you have the bit? Can you edit this? Or are you looking at a PDF?
What do you want?
Never mind.
Tell me.
If you open it up in the Google Forms, it would be easier. Let's move on. Buyer's offer.
I'll do it.
Okay. No.
No.
This is where
All right.
This is where my personality type doesn't do well.
Go ahead.
It's okay. So yeah, if it was already a Google form. So buyer's offer is 330, right? In this regard, let's pretend that this is the contract. This is what we're writing. Our offer is 330. However, if you receive any other offers that are higher than that, right? We are willing to increase our offer, right? We're willing to increase it, and we're willing to increase it $6,000 above anyone else. That's pretty high. Most of the time, you're going to see them as $1,000.
One or two. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're willing to increase our offer, right, up to a maximum of, it can't be 330, but yeah. So, in other words, I'm writing an offer for this property, right? The one we've been using as my scenario, 169.9. I'm going to write for 175, right? However, if they receive any other offers above 175, we're willing to go $1,000 above those to a maximum of 181. Let's say 181, meaning if someone else comes in and offers 176, what does that make my offer? 177. Someone comes in and writes an offer for 182. What's that make my offer? 181. Because I have a maximum, right? I'm willing to increase my offer. And again, just because I wouldn't be the highest in that regard doesn't mean I wouldn't win it, because it's also about the terms, right? Which we'll get to. So my point is, if another offer comes in, I'm willing to increase mine up to a certain amount, not to exceed a certain amount, right? Now, what kind of Pandora's box does this open?
You could pay way too much for this house.
Maybe, sure. But if I really love it and I've been looking for a while and there's nothing else on the market and I don't really care, I'm going to be here forever, I don't care, I'm going to try to put my best foot forward, right? I'm going to make my offer as appealing as possible.
Now you gotta come up with more cash.
You got to come up with more cash, right? However, just because you have an escalation clause doesn't mean you're also guaranteeing the appraisal, right? There's two separate agreements. I want them both in an agreement, because I'm not going to, as a listing agent, be comfortable with the price being bid up 15 grand if they're not also willing to cover the appraisal, right? That's just an added element of concern, because again, at the end of the day, you can have a purchase agreement that says 250. There's no way in heck that this property is going to appraise at 250. It's not 250. It's going to be whatever it's going to appraise at, right? So I've heard in numerous scenarios that if you're willing to pay 331 or 381 or 280 or whatever, 180, whatever the heck scenario we went to, just put that out there. You're making this confusing, right? Which could be the truth. Someone else can say, well, who's to say they can't just say that they do have another offer, right?
They do.
What do we ask? Yeah, they do. Written proof of other offers shall be provided to buyer's agent. So in other words, you've got Mr. Listing Agent, you've got to provide me a copy. I don't care if it's redacted name information, but you've got to show me a dated offer that was for higher than mine, or that triggered my escalation clause. Now, could their friend from a different brokerage write that up as fluff? Sure. Yeah, maybe. Could. Right? Is that important to my buyer? Is it not important to my buyer? They just want to win it? Okay. Right? But those are valid questions.
So on that regard, actually, how would you respond to that kind of objection, that they'd be concerned with, like you said, another agent or somebody else just writing up a fake fluffed offer?
Yeah. Well, number one, that would violate a lot of ethics. Number two, I don't see an agent going through that much trouble to do that. However, could it happen? Yeah, it could. You are taking a little bit of a leap of faith. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then let's just put the highest amount that you are willing to pay, regardless of what other offers come in at, and just get rid of this escalation clause once overall, because at the end of the day, that the proof, I can't guarantee it, right?
Great,
Makes sense?
thank you.
So,
I found it.
oh, did you? So, yeah. So the question was, all right. So Matt,
So this one's different.
you got an escalation clause here, and you've got an appraisal guarantee. Like, how do you put in both? Right? Can you put in both? Sure.
Then you can get really crazy. Yeah.
You can put in
That's
both.
what I did last week. I put them both in there.
And again, for me, I'm going to make sure I want to see that the appraisal is covered by the amount between the highest amount that the buyer is willing to pay and the list price. That's going to give me the peace of mind. More is better, of course, right? But in this regard, again, scenario was 169.9 is the list price. If we bid it up to 181, I'm going to want to see the difference between 181 and 169.9 covered through an appraisal guarantee, right? And if it's bigger, I want to see bigger covered just to protect my seller, right?
Can I
So
can
as
we
a
throw
buyer-
another? Sorry, there's
Yeah,
a
no,
delay.
sure.
If you have a good intellectual handle on what an escalation clause is and what an appraisal waiver or guarantee is, meaning you can teach somebody else what it is, right? Because you got to teach your clients what it is. Then you can jump to the next thing potentially and escalate the appraisal guarantee too. I had someone did it with a listing I had last summer with like 18 or 19 offers, and I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And it
So
was
let me-
awesome. We didn't
Yeah,
use
so-
it, but I was, wow.
Yeah.
Can
So
you say that again, Sharon?
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Matt.
Basically combining the two, saying, here's my appraisal guarantee, but we also have an escalation clause. And if my escalation clause will increase, right? If
No, you're
there's
escalating your appraisal guarantee.
so you're escalating your appraisal guarantee should someone else come. So if I say $1,000 and someone else comes in and says, I'll guarantee it 2,000. In other words, we're the same. Mine will go to 3,000, right? So imagine, especially when you have like 10 offers, right? When you've got like a property that has like 10 offers, it comes down to the nitty gritty in terms of what differentiates them. Maybe one's cash. Okay, great. Cash is king. But what does the rest of the terms look like? Maybe of the 9 remaining, 3 are FHA, one's VA, and one's a USDA. Okay, well, those would be hard to do. But let's say the remaining 3 are conventional and they're all the same. Like, how do you differentiate, right? There's other terms we haven't got to, but this is a way to throw it out there. Again, like Sharon said, you have to be able to explain this, right? Your buyer has to be savvy. Don't throw this in just willy-nilly, because
It's
again,
all
it's
about
obligating
making it bulletproof for both sides.
if this, then that. Yep. Preparing, and preparing your buyer for the worst, or when I say worst, I mean, let's say it doesn't appraise. Let's say this. What are you going to pay? What does that mean to your cash to close? All of that. Okay. So we've got price. We've got the ability to increase the price, and we have got the ability to cover the difference in the amount that it appraises for. What else, guys? What else in terms of an offer are the things that are important that we're going to put in our offer to compete?
Occupancy.
Sure. So Fatten, so the document that Sharon's scrolling through, everybody should have seen or have, no, it's okay. We've put it together for all this language that you guys don't have to reinvent the wheel. You copy and paste it, you change the numbers. It's been
Throwing it in the chat again.
Yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to all this language. Don't freak out, copy and paste it in there. Your PAs under additional conditions or an additional addendum if need be. But we want to make it as easy as possible for you, because this type of language isn't in DocQusign or .loop. But yes, price and terms are important, right? We talked a lot about the price and the terms of the price, but the other things are Well, let's go through a PA. Can you pull up your most recent offer you submitted, Sharon?
Sure. Let me find it. Hold
That's
on.
okay. So obviously you've got the property address, what's included, excluded. If the sellers are excluding the washer and dryer and it's a multiple offer situation, are you going to ask for the washer and dryer? No, don't. It's $1,000, maybe more. But I say this and it seems like common sense, guys, but I've got multiple offer situations and someone's asking for a home warranty. You know, it's only like $500, but my seller's like, why are they asking for that? Don't they know everyone else is putting their absolute best foot forward? It's weird. It muddies the water. And it might just because they ask for it in every deal. But in this situation, when there's multiple, don't do it. All right. Ask for it after the inspection comes back if you win the deal, maybe. So I want it to be really clean, right? Are you going to ask?
Which I didn't get, by the way.
Are you going to ask for closing costs in a multiple offer situation?
No.
I mean, you can. What's the likelihood that you're going to get them?
Probably zero.
Probably not high. What if you just increase the price to offset the closing costs? Well, as a listing agent, I want to see appraisal guarantee. And if you can afford to do an appraisal guarantee, why do you need your closing costs covered? Right? So I'm going to be really
What do you want me to do here?
Yeah, no. Go scroll up a little bit. So there's some things here, guys, that I will tell you to change, and other things that I don't want you to. Like number 2, obviously the price. Let me just back up for a second, because I know that this question's been asked. If you send an offer and someone rebuts your offer in terms of price, or your escalation clause goes into effect, have the listing agent redline the purchase agreement, seller sign it, and send it back to you. Why do I tell you that instead of you just revising your offer and resending it to them? Because why? If the seller has signed it, it puts the ball in your court, right? If the seller has signed it, it puts the ball in your court for your buyer to then come in and bottom line. If it's just verbal, what could happen in any minute? Another offer could fly into the listing agent's inbox, right? So although you can negotiate verbally or via text or email or over the phone, when you get the other party to agree what you want, tell them to put it in writing. Just a little sidebar.
Except until it's bottom line, nothing solid.
Well,
but psychologically, when somebody commits even an initial and a pen to a piece of paper,
yeah,
there's a level of commitment there that's different than things being verbal.
Yeah, time is of the essence, guys. If you're doing all of this, I mean, this is when, it's a joke, but I'll be up until 11 o'clock to get a signed agreement, because I just want a peace of mind. I'm not waiting until 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning the next day. Things going to happen, right? The appraisal under number 2, the number of days, unless your seller or the listing agent unless your mortgage lender says we can do it faster, you're not going to be really able to do it faster. I know we're already at 12:05, so if someone has to go, I get it, but let's keep rolling this train. B, mortgage, it is what it is. If your buyers have to do an FHA, you have to do an FHA. I mean, there's really not much about it. If they can go conventional, tell them to go conventional. Applying for the loan, I mean, 5 days, 7 days, that's about how quickly they do that. It's okay. Closing. Closing. Now, if the listing agent tells me I want a really quick closing, am I going to just put quicker days in there? No, because at the end of the day, if it's financing, I've got to put realistic dates based on my lender, right? Because at the end of the day, even though there's a range, if you need to perform, right? So I'm going to put a week range, just like Sharon did. I'm going to use typically 35 to 45 day range, right? And again, that's different than occupancy. So that's closing, right? So the closing, I'm going to make sure that I've got proper expert, understanding with my lender. How quickly is it coming, to get? Let's assume there's no tenants in the property. Number 7, home warranty. No, I'm not asking for it. If they want it, you want to buy it, great. Keep it off the PA.
Right, because it's competitive. Yep. Don't ask too much for things that you don't need.
All the other stuff,
we had not seen the disclosures because they had
Okay.
not been uploaded yet.
Yeah.
I guess
No
I
worries.
should have said has not, but
Yeah.
I
No
did
worries.
put it in the additional conditions that we needed
Yeah.
to see it.
Maybe you're writing an offer in it and you haven't seen them. You could put have not, and you could put, under additional that's contingent upon reviewing those.
Right.
I would never waive that.
Mm-mm.
Number 14, inspection. Listen, guys, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. I would be very, very, very leery about writing an offer not contingent upon inspection. Even if my buyer's a builder, even if my buyer's buddy is a inspector and he went there for the showing and he looked it around, I'm just not going to. If your buyers want to, I would be very careful to cover your butt. All right. I know in a multiple offer situation, really competitive market, it seems like one of the ways to make your offer really stand out, and it potentially can, but I'd be very, very, the only time I've ever done is when my buyers are tearing the house down. Okay. So it is going to be,
if they insist on it, it might not be a bad idea to write an email back and forth between you and your client that says, I just want to make sure that you understand, put it in writing, because when 4 months from now, they're calling Pete because they're pissed off because something happened with the house and they didn't do the inspection. You want a piece of paper that says, I advised them to do it, and they said no.
yeah. Absolutely.
FYI.
You're going to need a certain amount of days. I mean, 7 is usually what I put. I put 10, 4. I've sometimes put 5, right? I've had buyer's agents submit an offer saying, hey, Matt, if you accept our offer, I have a tentative scheduled inspector on call for Monday at noon, ready to, if you accept our offer, they're ready to inspect it at noon. That just shows me this agent's not looking to waste any time, right? They're moving forward, and I appreciate that. I've also seen additional language from inspection that the buyer have the right to inspect the home. It's going to be pass fail, meaning they're not going to, it's either going to fail and they're going to back out and they'll sign it in timely manner, mutual release, or it's a pass. They're not asking for sellers for anything, right? So you could, I mean, there's different ways to do that, or capping it, right? Or saying, unless my buyers find anything that's, worth or expensive, estimated at $1,000 or more, they're not going to ask the seller for anything. In other words, they're not going to nickel and dime the seller for little things, right? So there's different ways of writing that to potentially make it esteem a little bit. But at the end of the day, I would still not waive the inspection. 222, that's the days for back and forth. I mean, I guess you could do 1, but there's really no point. All of this stuff is relatively done quickly as soon as assuming everyone's on their game.
Hey, Matt, I have
Number 5. Yeah, go.
All the stuff that you just said, what would you write that on the additional conditions, like all the little nitpicky, like what do you write that on there?
Yep,
Is that where it goes?
Yep, additional conditions. And if it's not enough room, or it's not, I don't want you to be worried about not being wordy enough and this kind of stuff. You want to be as detailed as possible. There's nothing wrong with just attaching an addendum. And then additional conditions on the purchase agreement, right? See addendum. Okay. Remember, guys, an agreement in writing is for when there's a disagreement. Mm-hmm. An agreement is for when there's a disagreement. So you will find my agreements to be overly detailed. 1, that's just how analytical I am typically. But 2, it's because I've been burned. Why are contracts 15 pages long? Why can't it just say buyer will buy it, seller will sell it? It's because all this shit that could go wrong, right? That's why it's in writing. So when in doubt, put it in writing. Okay. Flood zone certification. Oh, no, government certification. This depends. You have to know, is the property in a city or township or a county where things need to be done, like well and septic, C of O, right? As a buyer's agent, I'm always going to say the seller's responsible for that. And
I mean, the safe bet for you guys, even if you don't have time to look it up, is just write seller and seller.
Yeah, you have to understand.
If there's no need, then it won't matter.
Yeah, I would never have my buyer be necessary or pay for repairs, but I might say the buyer will assume the property as is, and that is only if I've seen the copy of it already done. Right? I've seen the thing from the inspection from the township or city that says such and such needs to be done. But
yeah, they need fire smoke detectors and a new screen. Okay, fine, exactly. We'll do that. Who cares?
Exactly.
I
usually put for 16 the same amount of days as my inspection. You pretty much know if it's in flood zone or not. You can look FEMA online. FEMA's got a map, shows. You don't really have to worry about it around here. St. Clair Shores, Grosse Pointe area, you kind of do downriver. Moving on.
Yeah, final walkthrough, blah, 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 title.
All this stuff's boilerplate.
Yep, Pete's forms. He walks through all of this.
Guys, I use 20 lender or title. I always use legacy. That's mine. A seller can't determine who you work with.
Yeah.
However, I have seen, hey, if it makes it any better, right? Especially if the seller's very adamant, or the listing agent's very adamant about their title company. Hey, we're willing to use your title company if that sweetens the deal.
It's just playing nice, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then,
24.
this is where I had my additional conditions, right?
Okay. And we occupancy. We didn't talk about occupancy. Let's do that.
Yeah, because I did not offer. It was a vacant home at the time.
Okay. What's occupancy, guys?
If they need to stay a little bit longer after closing.
Yeah, it's ability to delay the exchange of keys after closing. Think of it that way. Okay. Why would a seller need to have occupancy?
Because they didn't.
They might have a boat.
Maybe they well, here's one that I often hear. Because deals fall apart right before closing, a seller doesn't want to move all their stuff out if the deal isn't going to go through. So they'd prefer to move all their stuff out after they know that they have the cash in hand after it's closed. All right. Maybe they're building a new house and it's not going to be ready. Maybe they haven't found a new house and they're still searching. They're freaking out. So they want assurance, right? So again, it's all dependent upon asking the buyer or the listing agent that question. What's important to your seller? Do they need occupancy? Mine, the scenario that we back up to the scenario, the conversation I had, she said, no, most of the stuff's already moved out, but he does want time to move out the boat. So Sharon and I were talking, what is something that I might add then in my offer to make it really appealing? Because of what a lot of buyers agents heard is, no, they don't need occupancy. I heard doesn't need occupancy, but needs some time to move the boat. I'm going to look at my calendar and say, okay, let's say it's middle February. Let's say we have 45 days to close. That takes us to the end of March, right? End of March, it's iffy, might still be crappy weather, might be good. What if my buyer, what if my client, right, Mr. Client, we give them 2 weeks of occupancy and we say, or 3, we say, hey, we just want to, we're looking at the time frame. We heard you loud and clear, right? We heard that it's important for you to move your boat in the good weather. And we want to give you the time to do that, right? No one else is doing it. Will our offer look strong? Yes, it will.
Because it'll speak to his heart, right? He's worried about damaging his boat. Exactly. And this guy cares.
Exactly. And if I'm to do that occupancy, right, I could charge a daily rate for it, right? Because essentially it's also called a lease back. It's basically buyer becomes homeowner and then the seller becomes tenant, right? Because they're still in the home. They no longer own it, but they're still responsible for it. And they may or may not pay rent, right? Or occupancy charge. So as a buyer, I could say, hey, we'll let you stay in for 3 weeks for free. You don't have to pay us, right? What is that going to cost my seller or my buyer rather? Not a lot. Basically a daily rate. If you've seen 1/30th PITI, that basically means what's your total payment for a month, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, divided by 30. That's for 30 days in a month. That's the prorated amount per day. So maybe it boils down to $30 a day for 3 weeks. It's really only costing my buyer $600, right? That's nothing compared to, but the impact that has for a seller might be really strong, especially if they know that we were listening to them. We were hearing what's important to them.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
The language regarding the boat and occupancy, it would still go under occupancy, even though it's not about the sellers staying, it's about the boat staying? Or would that go into the additional conditions part of the PA?
Yeah, so I would, Sharon and I were kind of talking about this. I'd be really careful about what you put in writing because there's mortgage companies have an issue with things, liability type things. For me, I'm just going to put 3 weeks, 21 days of occupancy. I'm going to put in the body of the email of the offer that I write to them, this is why we did this. And the conversation I'm going to have with the listing agent, this is why we did this. If there's other,
I see. Okay, I got you.
if there's other things like, we're not going to give them occupancy, but we can store the boat, like Sharon had maybe suggested that as being a thing, I'd put that in writing, right? So it's, and then I put some legalese that says, seller's not responsible for it. So if the house burns down, you don't owe them a boat. But yeah, just in normal regards to occupancy, you just put that amount in there. All right.
Okay.
And you don't have to explain what it's for, but you know what it's for.
In a correspondence directly to the seller's agent to make you look good, you'd be like, yeah, we're doing this because XYZ 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Now, in normal circumstances where we do 30 or 60 days of occupancy, it's, it could be free, it could be paid, it could be a combination of the two, right? You could have, hey, Mr. Seller, we're going to give you 60 days of occupancy. The first 30 are for free. The next 30 are going to be at a daily rate of XYZ. Okay. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Right. One thing that I want you guys to keep in mind as well is if you give a seller occupancy, you have to set the expectation to your buyer that the seller does not have to take all of that. All right. It's been an issue before because buyers didn't plan on getting the keys for 60 days. And after 30 days, the sellers decide, oh, we're out. We're not paying for any occupancy. We're out. And the buyers then has to put the utilities in their name as responsible at that moment. So just because you have occupancy doesn't mean it's guaranteed for a certain period of time.
Up to so many days, not exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you put it in writing, unless you said, right, it's going to be we're guaranteed 30 days, beyond 30, whatever. And so
yeah, we'll be paid for 30 days, whether you move out before or not, or whatever.
So I'm throwing a lot at you guys. What is the consensus of all of this? That it is not something that you want to be freaking out with your buyer when you have a deadline on a Saturday night and your spouse or your partner is wanting to spend time with you, or your kids are screaming, or you're on the go. So what can you do to help
today
alleviate this today? What could you do? I don't even care if you don't have a buyer. What could you do today?
So wouldn't it be prudent to, number one, be able to express and explain these concepts to the buyer so that the buyer is fully educated? And you want to do that, like you said, at the buyer's consultation, because you want to future pace your client. So you want to get them prepared for the contingencies that could come in this offer process. And then,
future pace. I like that.
I stole that from where I came from.
I don't care. I still like it.
Guys,
so I think what helped my confidence though is I have to practice these concepts, because while I do get them and I understand them, that's different from when I'm sitting in front of somebody trying to explain it and then I'm stumbling over my words, or I'm like, okay, I get it, but wait a minute, this is what I mean for real though. I mean, that's not professional, right?
Andrea,
So,
how do you then get better about being in front of someone?
I gotta practice.
And you don't, okay, so here's the thing. Practicing, and everyone's a little different, but practicing something like this means actually sitting down and trying to explain it to someone who wouldn't normally understand it. You know how many times I've role played begrudgingly with my wife who's like rolling her eyes? And I was I was taught something a while ago. I was like, if you can't explain something to a child, you don't understand it enough yourself. And of course, you're not going to be able to explain everything to a child, but the purpose is, are you dumbing it down? Are you bringing it to the simple, right? If you can do that clearly, right, you understand it yourself. You've internalized it. But that only happens after you I think unconsciously conscious or whatever of it. And that just comes from practice. So yeah, absolutely. What's the other thing?
Read those clauses, because and I've done it before, you can talk yourself in circles. And what if, and what if, and what if, and what if, and what if. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know what I'm thinking anymore. Take the clauses that I attached the link to that file, read them literally because it's a contract.
Yeah.
And literally what it says is exactly literally what you're doing. Don't use that as an anchor to prevent yourself from spinning, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh.
it's easy to do.
So
I like the comment of explaining it to a 5-year-old. For example, if you have any kids, I'm sure you're familiar with them constantly asking why. Think of it like yourself. You want to know those answers to those whys because you're going to need to explain it to your clients that way as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if you're not able to do that, you're not going to be impressing a lot of confidence in your client, right?
So I think that next week we're going to ask a few people to explain it to us.
That's a great one. So
Pop
in between
quiz.
now and then, guys, a purchase agreement's a purchase agreement. From one buyer to the next, the only differences really are like the address, the names, the terms, and
And the
everything.
special conditions.
Yeah, the terms and stuff are kind of so if you aren't, Fat and I talked about, how are you allocating your day, right? Are you doing just the 5 things a real estate agent should be doing? One of them is negotiating contracts. If you don't have any contracts to negotiate, are you time blocking part of your day to make sure that you understand these contracts? And I don't just mean going to Pete's Forms. That's important. Are you taking the time to create a dummy opportunity? Are you creating a dummy client and you're creating a dummy scenario of filling in these things in an offer, right? So when it comes time to actually do it, it's second nature, right? Are you practicing accessing those addendums and that language and copying and pasting or writing it up? So when you actually need to do it, you're not freaking out. Because guess what, guys? Sharon and I are always going to try to be here for you. Pete is, ALC is, but I guarantee you will be in a position where no one will be available and you will be freaking out, right? Or you'll just be running the scenario of discussing with your client. And the more that you've practiced, the more confident you're going to be. The more confident you're going to be, the better the chances that your seller or your buyer understands what they're doing and is going to write a great offer. I do not want you wandering around town with buyers just showing properties. I want you showing as little as houses as possible and getting your offers accepted. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do this in this market right now, is if we understand these things, we're able to put our best foot forward, and we're able to be really good co-op agents to communicate these things to a listing agent. Other than that, you can rest easy saying you did the best that you could do. Okay. So with that being said, I hope
these chats save and whoops, sorry, I'm reading the chat out loud. Fatten, these get saved and posted within 24 hours on the Facebook group, and then they are also uploaded to the coaching YouTube channel. So you can go back and look at a lot of ones from the past. They're all in there.
Robert's done an incredible job of putting them up in like 24 hours. Thank you.
Yes.
Used to take like a month.
So
If
guys, they ever got up there.
If you've got a buyer right now, I don't care where they are in this stage, pretend that they're ready to write an offer today. In their opportunity, in command, obviously don't send them anything to sign, but start it up, write it up, right? Figure it out, right? Be prepared, right? Practice. That's all it is. And then, if you don't already, role play with someone. Pick up the phone. Explain what appraisal guarantee is. Explain what an escalation clause is. Practice just this. Hey, Matt, let's pretend you're a buyer. I'm the buyer's agent. Mr. Buyer says, Matt, what can we do to make my offer more competitive? That's a great question, Matt. I'm so glad that you asked it. There are a number of ways, in addition to just the price, that we can make your offer more competitive. And I don't know if you can actually do all of these things, but let me explain them to you, right? And boom, 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 boom. Escalation clause, appraisal guarantee, EMD, this, occupancy, all the things we just talked about, right? If you've mastered all of them, I want someone to raise their hand and we're going to role play it. Not now, but in the future. Okay? Sound good? Hopefully this was beneficial. Wish me luck. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Good luck on your offer.
guys.
Yes, good luck.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
luck.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been awesome
Thank you
today.
guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
great week. Thank
All right.
you.
Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.